Welcome back, listener. Let's continue with the next chapter of Till the Last Breath by Durjoy Datta. Chapter 11, Pihu Malhotra. The day had been exhausting. MRIs, nerve biopsies, and a million other tests were carried out to track the progress of her disease. Arman oversaw every blood draw, every biopsy, and every current wave that was made to pass through her body. It was comforting for her. The battery of tests, the pain, and the constant tension were scary. In the middle of her third test, she asked her parents to leave. She knew she was the weakest with them around. Are you still thinking about the stem cell thing? Pihu asked Arman again. Yes, I am, Arman responded. If they went ahead with it, it would be a long treatment that would require her to pop 50 pills a day till the time of her surgery. These tests are off or on the record. You don't have to worry about it. The medical expenses will be paid by the hospital. I got you into the pre-trials, but I have told them we won't be testing the stem cell treatment on you till we get the permission to do so, which we won't. Fine, she said with a sad smile. Let's hope things go as per plan, he said and tried hard to concentrate on the screen. They were checking if the disease had won the battle against the antibodies. She sensed that he was either uncomfortable or he didn't like to talk when he was working. The creases on his forehead were incredibly sexy. The taut veins in his outstretched hands were signs of a man who had played some sport in his younger days. She started to imagine him on a football field on a rainy day, his t-shirt stuck to his toned torso, his hair wet and his legs dirty. In her fantasy, she was with him on the field, alone. Soon they were rolling in the mud. I am losing it. Stop it. She snapped out of her wet 1990s Jitendra movie fantasy. It was only one of the dozens of various situations where she found herself being intimate with Dr. Arman. Do you have a girlfriend? She asked with a twinkle in her doe like eyes. No, I don't. Why don't you? You are smart and successful. You should have one, she said and smiled at him. The nurse drew blood and she winced. Arman winced too. I don't have the time. Oh, yes, I forgot. The great Dr. Arman Kashyap. How can you have time when you are too busy being a genius? She chortled and Arman looked at her in fake anger. He said, Are you making fun of me? I don't think anyone has told you, but you should know better than to fight with your doctor or your waiter. They can kill you or pee in your food. Pihu felt good to see him joke and loosen up. Usually, he was too busy cranking his brain muscles to full capacity and bringing people back from the dead. That's gross. The pee thing? Yes, I know. That's why you shouldn't mess with us. Or what will you do? Kill me even faster? She said. Silence. Arman's face contorted. She was happy to see that her absence would matter to him. Then she immediately chided herself for thinking too much. Arman was at least a decade older, even though her mind reasoned that it only made him more desirable. Successful, sane men with experienced hands and tongues make for better fantasies than young, immature boys. Going by the scores of Mills and Boone books she had read, older men always knew where to touch, where to place their tongues, where to hold and caress. Snap out of it. I thought you would be used to people dying around you. You must see it every day, don't you? She asked, breaking out of her imaginary world of muddy football fields, crackling fireplaces, and deserted metro stations. I thought so too, he said, and walked away from her. He started to check the numbers and figures on the monitors. Can you guide me through the numbers and things you are checking for? She asked out of curiosity. It had been more than an year since she had attended medical school, but her thirst for knowledge was still insatiable. For the next 1 hour, they discussed her tests in excruciating detail. She felt good when Arman admitted that she was smarter and more knowledgeable than even a few medical school graduates. At one point, he even called her a freak, a mutant with an extraordinary memory for medicine. Her schoolgirl cheeks turned scarlet as if he had complimented her smile. I think we are done for the day, he said. Now we just have to compile the results and see what happens. Great, she said and smiled. By the way, I talked to a few doctor friends in the US who are trying out the same treatment. They are very hopeful about its success. Who knows? Armand didn't look at her while he said that. He clasped his palms and rubbed them together like a young kid lying to his parents. Thank you. You don't have to thank me. I do. After a long time, I felt I was in a class again. It was perfect. She purred and wondered if she was still blushing. Arman leaned towards her and held her hand. Her breath stuck in her throat. The warmth of his hand, the look in his brilliant black eyes, and the creases on his forehead almost knocked her heart out. For a moment, she was back in the muddy football field, in front of a crackling fire, in a big house, in a deserted metro station, with just the two of them. Everything will be okay, he assured her. She wasn't listening to the words. The words floated in her ears, and she turned her to him with a blank head and a rapidly beating heart. I'm sure it will, she said. Arman hugged her and she lost herself in his arms. You will be okay, he muttered. He jerked his hands away as he saw Zara walk into the room. I will see you later, he said and left the room abruptly. Pihu was smiling as she stared at the ceiling. She could still feel his hands around her. Slowly she closed her eyes and wished she could stay there forever. Her dreams knew no bounds that day. Her mom was sleeping scrunched on the tiny bed, and Pihu didn't want to wake her up. Her dad was at home. Venugopal cut her calls and she guessed he must be busy peering down cancer-ridden lungs or rotten pituitary glands. In the past few months, Venugopal and Pihu had spent hours talking to each other about her symptoms, his crushes, her fears, and it always felt like they would be back together on the last seats of the class, scribbling notes together, nudging each other whenever the class would hover around penises or anything of that sort. She texted him, the doctor hugged me today. I think I'm in love. Not like teenage, I love you so I need you love, but eternal, true, dying love. Venugopal, you have got to be shitting me. I thought I was your eternal love. We would be a perfect example for racist bastards. She laughed and remembered the times they had placed their hands together and compared her pale white complexion to his smoky black thingy. She replied, oh, you will always be the one. But he is so cute. I mean, not really. He's just hot. Like really hot. Like unbelievably hot. I wouldn't think twice checking him for hernia. Venugopal. Nothing, be- Nothing beats a tall, handsome, and a really dark guy. Anyway, I get it. And stop being gross. Are you high on something? Pihu. No. Call me as soon as you get free and tell me everything what you're doing, cutting, reading, screwing up. Miss you. Venugopal. Miss you more. With no one to talk to about how spectacular her day was, she turned to Dushyant, who looked engrossed in a book. A part of her was surprised to see the brat with a book. He can read? It was hard to imagine him doing anything else but loitering around with an empty bottle of alcohol in his hands and half burned cigarette on his lips. She wasn't far from the truth, though. I heard you had gone missing today, she asked, trying to make small talk. She really wanted to tell him about the goose flesh and how she thought she would faint when the doctor touched her. None of your business, he said and turned on his side. Why are you so bothered by me? Anyway, I am the only one who talks to you. Oh, apart from the hot female doctor, that is. I tell you, having a background in medical myself, doctors usually aren't as gorgeous as her or Dr. Arman, she said, hoping he would latch onto the conversation. He shrugged. I don't like you in my room. Your parents wanted another room for you. Why not take a single room? Why still be here and eat whatever is left of my brain? Are you still pissed at what my mom said? She recalled the time when her mom had labeled him a degenerate, profligate son. I'm really sorry about that. Sometimes she's just. No, I'm not. I just don't see a reason why we have to talk. I'm sorry for what she said. Can we? You don't have to be. Can I get back to my book? I don't know what your problem is with me, she said, exasperated. Pihu never saw any reason to be rude to someone. Concepts like rudeness, jealousy, hatred, etc., baffled her. People, for her, were either black or white, with no shades of grey. I don't like you. Do you get me? I don't like the fact that you're constantly smiling when my whole body feels like it's burning up, turning to ashes. I'm scared to death, and when I look on the other side, I see the smiling face of a carefree girl with her parents hugging and kissing her. It's irritating. Why couldn't you just take another room and let me suffer in peace? You're not dying. I talked to Dr. Zara. She just said you have some tumors. You will be okay. She assured Dushyant, whose body shook in little tremors. Was he crying? I coughed blood. I even peed blood today. They are clueless about what I have. Please let the real doctors do their jobs and don't meddle. He bellowed at her. You will be okay. I am sorry if my smile bothers you so much, she said, almost guilty. Like she always did, she rationalized his behavior as an outcome of his frustration and fear. Just get your treatment and get the hell out of here, he growled. Fine, she said and drew the curtains between them. From the other side, she could hear Dushyant ring someone from his phone and call his roommate, an irritating girl named Pihu, a bitch. Her eyes welled up. His tone was hurtful. She wanted to pull the curtain away and shout at him, "You're not the one who is dying. I am." All of a sudden, she choked up. She was no longer delighted by her thoughts of an imaginary romance. She was going to die soon. He was going to live. Her pain was going to be a lot more. She had been through it earlier, and she was doubtful she had the strength to do it again. She hated her body and wished it had destroyed itself the first time. A dreadful time was staring right in her face, and he reminded her of it. She couldn't sleep. Her conversation with Dushyant had left her shattered. It reminded her of now numbered days. She picked up the book, a multi-million copy bestseller and a guidebook for patients afflicted with ALS. It had been recommended to her by the first doctor who had diagnosed her, Tuesdays with Mori. It was about a 70-year-old man named Mori who had the same disease as her, ALS. It was about the life lessons the old man shared with a student of his across a time frame of 13 Tuesdays. He eventually dies, slowly and in pain, but content and victorious. She tried not to think about the time before the experimental drugs had worked, but that's exactly how she started to think about it. When she had to be fed with someone else's hand, when her tongue used to be paralyzed and she would choke on it. She had been trying not to think about it, but Dushyant brought those memories flooding back into her head. She imagined someone cutting her throat open and inserting a tube so that she could breathe normally. She was crying now. Just then she heard the door open. The curtain hid most of the person who had just come in, but she could make out from the silhouette that it was a girl. The lack of a doctor's coat told her it wasn't Zara. She strained her neck to see who it was, but couldn't. "What are you doing here?" she heard Dushyant say. "I wanted to see how you were doing. I was worried." The girl's voice quivered. It was a very feminine voice, almost like whipped strawberry cream on chocolate, sweet as hell. "You didn't need to come. I don't need you, and I am fine," Dushyant grumbled. Pihu noticed the same rudeness again. "Don't say that," she said. "They called me up. Your doctors. They said you could have tumors. I was scared. What's happening, Dushyant?" She prodded, her sweet nightingale voice almost putting Pihu to sleep. Her voice was the truth. "Why do you care?" "Because I do." "You don't need to," he said. "Does Varun know you're here?" "No, he doesn't." "Are you going to tell him?" "It doesn't matter whether I do or not. I don't think he needs to know," she said. "Are you guys still together?" he asked. "Yes." "Good," he said and paused. "So now that you have seen that I am okay, I think you should leave." "It doesn't have to be like this," the girl said. Her voice still shook as if she was scared of Dushyant. Pihu strained her ear to listen closely. Dushyant's nails on a blackboard voice in stark contrast to the girl's opera singer's voice. "It has to be like this." "Why are you acting so difficult, Dushyant?" "I am acting difficult? You leave me and then don't talk to me for 2 years, and now that I am here, you come to me? Why? To make yourself feel better? I am not going to give you that pleasure. I had a hard time forgiving and forgetting you. Please don't make me go through that again. Go back to your rich, smart boyfriend you have always been in love with. I don't care about you anymore." "We didn't have to end up like this. You chose it to be like this. You walked out of my life and fucked your ex-boyfriend. It wasn't me. It was your fault," he growled. "I didn't, but I'm sorry. After what happened, I couldn't have stayed, and you know that. After what happened between us. Had you loved me enough, you would have stayed. You definitely wouldn't have gone running into his arms. I was begging for you to come back. I almost destroyed myself to get you back. Wh- What didn't I do to catch your attention? For a little pity. Why didn't you come when I was drinking myself to death? Why? Didn't you think for once how I would feel?" "I did." "Fuck off. Please. I don't want you here. I would rather die than talk to you," she heard Dushyant shout. "But just get out." "Dushyant." One last time. Get out. She heard the rustling of the bedsheet and saw the feet leave the room. She felt sorry for the girl with the hypnotic voice who had just been disparaged by Dushyant. Too bad she couldn't see her beyond the soft, beautiful ankles. For the first time, her judgment about Dushyant changed. Maybe it wasn't the disease or the tumor. Maybe Dushyant has always been a sick person. End of chapter 11.